Hello. So welcome to our next chapter. So we are using our audit in 100 pages notes. So today we will be doing with liabilities of auditor. Now this rarely comes in your exam, so don't give a lot of importance. I've also finished this chapter in only one page. So let's start. So this chapter is approximately 39 to 40 pages in your study module. Basically, liabilities of auditor, there are basically two types of liabilities. First is under your Companies Act. This is under Companies Act, and second is under the Income Tax Act. So these are liabilities of auditor under the two acts. Now under the Companies Act, there are again two types of liabilities. First is your criminal liability, and second is your civil liability. Now, criminal liability has three sections, that is your section 34, section 448, and section 447. 447 is your most important section. Make sure you learn this section. That is your punishment with regards to fraud. So now what does section 34 say? Section 34 says criminal liability for misstatement in prospectus. If there is any misstatement in the prospectus that the company has issued, the auditor will be liable. It will be criminal liability. So any prospectus is issued which includes statement which is untrue or misleading. So when you say misstatement, what do you mean by misstatement? By misstatement, you mean it is either untrue or misleading. That means either there is a false statement or the statement means something else, but its meaning that is interpreted is something else. Then every person who authorizes the issue, of such prospectus shall be liable under section 447. So remember, even after under section 34, he will still be liable under section 447. That is your fraud. Okay, next is your section 448. 448 talks about criminal liability for making false statements. So first was with regards to section 34. Section 34 was about any misstatement in your prospectus. Now section 448 is about criminal liability for making any false statement. So if in any return, report, certificate, prospectus, financial statements or other document, any person makes a statement which is false and material, knowing it to be false. So if it is by mistake, it is okay. But if they know it is false and they still put this statement, then you will be liable under section 448, which omits any material facts, knowing it to be material if you omit. So not just by putting false information, but even if you omit some fact. By omit some fact means you did not put some fact which you should have, which is material. Again, you will be liable under section 447. So both of these sections direct us to section 447. Now coming to section 447. Now section 447 talks about punishment for fraud. So if your fraud amount, so first of all, you have to check a limit, that is 10 lakhs or 1% of turnover, whichever is lower. 10 lakhs or 1% of turnover, whichever is lower. Now this is your amount. Now if your fraud amount is equal to or greater than this amount, there will be imprisonment from a period of 6 months to 10 years. From a period ranging from, that is minimum 6 months to maximum 10 years. And you will also be liable to a fine of fraud. Minimum amount is the amount of fraud that you've done till 3 times the amount of fraud. This will be your range of the fraud, your range of the fine. And it is, remember, it is an and condition. That means imprisonment and fine both will be applicable. If your fraud amount is more than 10 lakhs or 1% of turnover, whichever is lower. However, if your fraud is less than this limit, then your imprisonment, instead of 6 months to 10 years, it will be up to 5 years. That means a maximum period of 5 years. And the penalty, that is the fine condition, that will either be or, and that means it could be either or both of them. And your fine will be your up to rupees 20 lakhs. And minimum 3 years imprisonment if it involves public interest. So if your fraud involves any public interest, then there will be minimum 3 years of imprisonment irrespective of these limits. Okay, so this was your criminal liability. So we did section 34, then we did section 448, then we did section 447. Now section 34 and 448 both lead us to section 447, and 447 we have done 10% of 1% turnover, whichever is lower. Okay, 6 months, 5 years, and amount will be fraud to 3 times fraud. And over here up to 5 years, it will be a or and both will be available, and fine will be maximum up to rupees 20 lakhs. Okay, now coming to your next part, that is your civil liability. Civil liabilities is your section 35. Section 35 says civil liability for misstatement in Prospectus. So what you have to understand that for misstatement in prospectus, you have either criminal liability or you have civil liability, you have both of them. So where person has subscribed for securities of company, where any person has subscribed, they have given the money for for securities of company acting on statement included or omission in prospectus. That means on basis of any statement in the prospectus or on basis of any statement that was omitted from the prospectus, which is misleading and has sustained any loss, then the company and every person who is director of the company at the time the prospectus was issued is promoter of the company, has authorized the issue of prospectus, or D is an expert. So these four people shall be liable to pay compensation to every person who has sustained loss. That means because of such misstatement, whoever person has sustained loss, these are the people who will be reimbursing that loss. Okay, so we are done with liabilities under the Companies Act. Now next is your liabilities under the Income Tax Act. Now your Income Tax Act 1961 has, first of all, section 288. 288 talks about disability as to represent the SSE. Disability as to represent the SSE. Person convicted of offense related with your income tax proceedings or on whom penalty has been imposed under this act. So that means certain people are not allowed to represent SSC. So who are these people? Person convicted of an offense related to your income tax proceeding or on whom penalty has been imposed under this act. Next, CA found guilty of professional misconduct by counsel of ICI. Any CA who is found guilty of professional misconduct by counsel of ICI cannot act as representative till he is disqualified. Next is the section 278, that is false account declaration statement relating to taxable income to income tax authorities knowing it to be false. So if you are furnishing any false account declaration statement related to the taxable income to whom? To your income tax authorities, and you know that this information that you are submitting, it is false, it is not true. So in such a case, if your tax evaded is more than rupees 25 lakhs, then your imprisonment will be 6 months to 7 years and fine. However, if your tax evaded is less than or equal to 25 lakhs, okay, over here tax evaded is more than 25 lakhs. Over here tax evaded is less than or equal to 25 lakhs. Your imprisonment will be 3 months to 2 years and fine. Okay, so 6 months to 7 years, 3 months to 2 years. Now, Rule 12, it talks about false information in return. So any return prepared by your CA or and furnished by SSE, if the return includes information which is false and the CA knows this, he will be liable to rigorous imprisonment. What do you mean by rigorous imprisonment? That means you will not just be put in the prison, but you will also be made to work. You will be made to do labor. Therefore, it is called rigorous imprisonment. So liable to rigorous imprisonment, which may last up to 7 years and fine. Okay, so if there is any false information in any return which is prepared by the CA and the CA knows that this information is false, he will be liable to rigorous imprisonment along with fine, and now this imprisonment will last up to 7 years. Okay, and with this we are done with this chapter, and I will see you in the next one, that is your internal management and operational audit.